Good evening and welcome. Tonight, for enforcement of COVID-19 restrictions in Lagos, some residents throw caution to the wind as they gather at fun sports in the city on Boxing Day. It's a different ball game in the nation's capital, Abuja, as FCC authorities shut down recreational centers in enforcement of COVID-19 guidelines. Troops fighting insurgency in the northeast get assurances of increased support and adequate equipment as chiefs of army staff and air staff visit the front line in Borno and Yobe states. And Spain, Sweden and Switzerland confirmed cases of the more contagious COVID-19 variant identified in the United Kingdom. Plus business and sports.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's crude oil exports to the United States dips by 820,000 barrels in the third quarter of 2020.
And on sports news tonight, former France national team coach Raymond Dominic joins League One club Nantes on short-term deal.
Compliments of the season, everyone. Now, the celebration of Christmas continues today, which is Boxing Day. And in the spirit of the season, fun seekers in Lagos visited some leisure spots in the city. At some of the places visited, many of the holiday makers were seen without their face masks and mingled freely without adherence to COVID-19 protocols. While the management of Elegushi Beach attempted to enforce the no face mask, no entry policy, some of the visitors were quick to adjust their face mask after entry and also disregarded social distancing rule. Our correspondent, Ini John Mekwa, reports.
Coming by foot and some by cars, some Lagos residents seem to brace up against all odds as they make their way to Elegushi Private Beach in Lekki area of the state to make the most of the holiday.
I get to spend time with my friends and family.
Are you not afraid of COVID-19?
We're taking precautionary measures.
But this year is not like any other. The management says this area was inaccessible by this time last year, but perhaps for the fear of COVID-19, the turnout is relatively low.
Everyone knows what's happening in town. We have a lot of complications concerning the COVID-19 and there are lots of restrictions, and we also are trying our best to reduce the number of people that we admit into the beach because of the 50% kind of restrictions the government gave.
We observe the enforcement of no face masks, no entry, with face masks available for those who may not have theirs. The camera has not been allowed to go beyond this point, which is the entry point. But even from here, we see that while the management of the beach ensures that the no face mask, no entry is being followed by everyone coming into the beach. But even at this point, which is close to the entry, we notice that it is difficult for people to maintain the face mask on, during their stay at the beach. At Ndubuisi Kanu Park in Ikeja area, there are notices which should remind visitors of the COVID-19 protocols, but it seems many have gotten used to them. I'm sure you wore your face mask when you were coming in. Where is your face mask?
Yes, I'm with it.
Why did you remove it?
Nothing.
For people who come as groups, social distancing is hardly observed.
You can see we are not, you can see there's distance as it were.
As high figures of daily cases continue to be recorded, the government struggles with enforcement of safety protocols, especially during the holidays. Ini John Mekwa, Channels Television News.
Well, the situation was not particularly different in the Edo State capital with regard to the adherence to the COVID-19 guidelines. Most of those who visited one of the major fun spots in Benin City were seen without face masks and paid no attention to physical distancing rules. They told Channels Television that they consider the holiday an opportunity for relaxation and a time to bond with family members and friends.
I'm here with some of my friends to catch fun and try to free myself and ease myself off some of the economic meltdown and the hardship in our country. As you know, there's need for us to have fun.
It is what I do every year. I prefer maybe after the morning, the days cooking, I will just come here with my family, my grandchildren. You can see my mat and everything. I will bring my food. We'll just while away time, maybe anytime from 6 p.m. so they will start going back home.
But it's a different ball game in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, where the usual fanfare associated with the festivity appears to be absent, where authorities have continued the enforcement of the COVID-19 restrictions. Due to this, recreational centers and other outdoor fun sports are devoid of the hustle and bustle that usually characterized those places in the past. Our correspondent Terry Ikumi captures the situation at Parks and Gardens in the FCT on Boxing Day.
The COVID-19 pandemic has really changed the way we live our lives. Recreational centers in the Federal Capital Territory are closed to visitors due to the pandemic. In preparation for the second wave of the coronavirus, the Federal Capital Territory Authority imposed new restrictions, which include closure of parks and gardens. This is the Millennium Park in Abuja, which during a festive season like this would normally be filled to capacity, with visitors seeking to spend some time with friends and family, perhaps for a picnic. But only a small unit of vendors is seen, with no patrons in sight. Also heavily affected is the Magic Land. One of the managers who would rather speak off camera says the center has lost a lot of money due to the closure. The FCT task force is responsible for enforcing the restrictions, and so far the compliance level seems satisfactory.
Very high but not total, very high but not total. If you watch today being Boxing Day and yesterday being Christmas Day, the Millennium Park is under lock and key, the Jabi Lake Park is under lock and key, some other very vital parks are under lock and key here. In the gardens, we went slightly before Christmas and we shut down some of the gardens and we sealed them up, made some arrests here, and we are following those ones very closely here.
On the 24th of December, 4 parks were shut down and 9 arrests made in the FCT.
Yesterday, Christmas Day, we did not make arrests because those we have are largely children, largely juvenile. And one thing very beautiful about it is that when we talk to them yesterday, Christmas Day, and today being Boxing Day, they easily complied.
With over 3,700 COVID-19 cases still active in the FCT and 95 deaths recorded so far, the task force is determined to ensure that the new restrictions are fully complied with. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Now let's now take you to Bauchi State, where Governor Bala Mohammed is promising equal distribution of the state's resources, irrespective of religion or ethnicity. The governor gave the assurance when he received the Christian community in the state who came to pay him Christmas homage at the government house. The governor assures that the impact of his administration will be felt even in the most remote villages of the state. Our correspondent Hajara Aliyu reports.
Christians in Bauchi State are counting their blessings as they celebrate yet another Christmas. No doubt, the year 2020 has been a tough year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, insecurity, and the economic downturn. But being alive and healthy is enough reason to rejoice. In their moments of joy, the governor of Bauchi State and his wife, accompanied by the deputy governor and the speaker of the State House of Assembly, joins the Christian community who are here to pay Christmas homage.
Let us tolerate each other. With tolerance, there will be peace. And with justice, there will be peace. I assure you, we are going to come up with projects and programs that will improve the quality of life of all of you and your own people.
The leadership of the Christian Association pays a separate courtesy call on the governor as they acknowledge the good governance in the state, but not without some observations.
The Christian community in Bauchi State, Your Excellency, are very much left behind when it comes to the issue of sectarian.
As I said, I regret we are not able to give you the finishing and roofing assistance that you need for your secretariat. But I assure you, this 2021, your mind or your face will be gladdened by what we are going to do.
Women were not left out of the festivities as the wife of the governor presents gift items to some women who came visiting. Hopefully, these gestures will improve the religious harmony that already exists in the state. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
And in the spirit of the season, the Army and Air Force chiefs have been visiting troops in the front line of the fight against insurgency in a bid to boost their morale. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, has met with officers deployed to 27th Special Task Force Brigade in Buniyadi, Yobe State, with a message of hope, reassuring them of necessary support to successfully conduct their operations. The same message was conveyed to their air counterparts in Borno State, where Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar declared that the fight will take a new turn with the acquisition of additional power.
Many look forward to the Yuletide as a season for renewed hope and to bring good cheer. And for troops of the Nigerian Army deployed to Yobe State, that's exactly what they need, even if just to temporarily take their mind off the front line. Fighting the Boko Haram insurgency means they can't be with their families at this time. Still, it's a season to celebrate, and the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, is showing some love to the troops of the 27th Special Task Force Brigade in Buniyadi, hosting them to a Christmas luncheon. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, rather than sit to eat together, food packs are shared. There's also a message of hope from the Army Chief, reassuring them of necessary support to successfully conduct their operations.
Let me reassure you of our commitment to the welfare of all officers and men of the Nigerian Army. We will continue to reevaluate the welfare packages of the Nigerian Army to ensure they meet the best standards and practices internationally.
It's been a decade since troops were deployed to the northeast region to liberate communities from the stronghold of terrorists. Yobe State is one of those that has suffered the effects of the violence, and the state government applauds the army for its work.
I urge you all to not relent in your efforts until Yobe State and the entire north is secured. Let me restate the commitment of this administration to support troops of Operation Lapia Dole with the logistics within the available resources of the state to tackle the Boko Haram insurgency.
It seems the same kind of love is being spread by the Chief of Air Staff, who is also visiting his officers and men in the northeast region. The Air Chief is marking this year's Christmas with men of the Air Task Force, the air component of Operation Lafia Dole in Borno State, where he declared that the newly acquired platforms and equipment will change Air Force operations in the coming year.
For us in the Air Force, every time we have an additional air asset, it's something we celebrate, and we use air assets to fight. So we are very excited that the federal government has released quite a number of these platforms into the service, inducted. And we are hoping that we should be able to address these problems.
Meanwhile, the Borno Deputy Governor, Omar Kadafo, assures the Air Force of the state government support.
As far as we are concerned, we reiterate our commitment as a government, and I know we are trying hard to see that Borno State and the whole North is secured, inshallah.
The war against terror is not over, and because the Army and the Nigerian Air Force complement each other's efforts to combat terrorism, such visits from their chiefs will be cherished by the troops as a morale booster to get them going again once they get back to the front line.
In part 2, after the break, gunmen invade praying camp and abduct state PFN chairman, his wife, and one other person in Kaduna. To join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. More enforcement of COVID-19 restrictions in Lagos. Some residents throw caution to the wind as they gather at fun sports on Boxing Day. It's a different ball game in the nation's capital, Abuja, FCT authorities shut down recreational centers in enforcement of COVID-19 guidelines. Troops fighting insurgency in the northeast get assurances of increased support and adequate equipment as chiefs of army staff and air staff visit the front line in Borno and Yobe states. And Spain, Sweden and Switzerland confirmed cases of the more contagious COVID-19 variant identified in the United Kingdom. The Lagos State Police Command is assuring residents of the city of their safety during and beyond the festive season. Responding to a series of robbery threats in some areas in the state, the Commissioner of Police, Hakeem Odumosu, says security has been enhanced across the state for a crime-free celebration.
The information of planned attacks on residents in the Ikorodu area of Lagos caught the attention of the police. An anonymous robbery notice was sent last week to residents of Eriwen Street in Okeotono area of Ikorodu.
I heard that some guys wrote later that they are coming, but I don't know how truthful is it because I didn't see the letter.
When I saw a siren coming out, I'm hearing it, I just coming out. I asked some of my neighbors that what's going on. They said they don't know. Then I sat down. Let me see what is going on. Until I was hearing something like that from you. In fact, I'm very, very grateful. This is a very powerful security. Almighty Allah will God helping you. So we shall not see anything like that is going to be happen to us in this area.
This long convoy patrolling streets in Ikorodu is that of officers and men of the Rapid Response Squad. This latest operation is to reassure residents of adequate security.
If you must know, Ikorodu now is a bit calm because last week we had a community policing in action where the traditional rulers of Ikorodu axis. So we had a pally here and a lot of interactive sections that I had, a lot of information, a lot of the responsibilities for them to the police, our responsibilities to them, and all the resolutions that we arrived at, we have started implementation. And that's why for the past 1 week now, you can hardly have anything of that in Ikorodu. And it's been extended to all parts of the state.
If this present deployment of security across the state is sustained, Lagosians may have nothing to panic about during and beyond the festive season.
Staying with security, insurgents have reportedly attacked communities in the southern part of Borno State. Some residents told Channels Television that they were on the run as the insurgents rode into the area in at least 10 vans. According to the sources, the terrorists were first seen around Mandara Dairo at about 1 p.m. today. They proceeded unchallenged through other villages, shooting sporadically, looting food items and setting houses ablaze. The terrified villagers are said to be hiding in nearby mountains, except for the old and the sick who are feared to be stuck in the mayhem. The residents say the stress caused to the military has not yielded any results, and today's attack is the third in 3 days with no word from the military. Meanwhile, the security situation in Kaduna and some other parts of the country remains a source of concern as gunmen suspected to be kidnappers have abducted the Kaduna State Chairman of the Pentecost Fellowship of Nigeria, Emmanuel Bako, his wife, and one other person. The incident was said to have occurred yesterday in Jama'a local government area. According to the Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arawan, the unidentified gunmen attacked the El Barka praying camp on the Afana Fadan Kagoma Koi Road, firing sporadically before abducting the 3 persons. This as the troops arrived at the location and pursued the kidnappers who were able to escape with the victims. Also, gunmen have killed 2 senior police officers and injured 1 constable in a Christmas Day attack in Garaki local government area of Jigawa State in an attempt to abduct residents. The incident comes less than a week after another police officer was shot dead in Megatari local government area while also trying to rescue some kidnapped victims. Police Public Relations Officer of the Jigawa State Police Command, Abdul Jinjiri, who confirmed the incident to Channels Television, says kidnappers have been terrorizing Gumel Emirate. It says a joint operation of police divisions under Gumel Area Command was dispatched as early as 3 a.m. on Christmas Day, following reports of a den of kidnappers in the area. Another group of gunmen struck Gunjugu town in Taura local government area of Jigawa State this morning, where they kidnapped a nursing mother, leaving behind her 1-month-old baby with her husband. The gunmen are said to have stormed the residence of one Bashiru Haruna and whisked away his 23-year-old wife, Habashia Haruna, at about 2 a.m. Police authorities in the state say the incident was only reported after about 8 hours, making it difficult for the police to trace the kidnappers. And in a related development, but this time in the southwest, where gunmen have abducted 2 persons in a Lexus Jeep on the Ishon axis in Oye local government area of Ekiti State. The State Police Public Relations Officer Sunday Abutu, who confirmed the incident, said one of the victims was rescued shortly after the abduction. He acknowledged the role played by men of the Amotekun security outfit and other vigilante groups, while giving assurances that the remaining victim will be rescued. And it's another sad story, this time coming from Niger State, where gunmen have killed the village head of Madaka in Rafi local government area of the state, Malam Zakari Yo Idris, a week after he was abducted. The chief of staff to the chairman of Rafi local government area, Mohammed, confirmed the murder of Zakari Idris to Channels Television via telephone conversation on Saturday. According to him, the bandits had earlier contacted the family of the late village head to pay a ransom of 800,000 naira. He, however, adds that 5 persons that were released after they paid their own ransom revealed that the village head of Madaka was murdered by the bandits. Police authorities in Niger State could not be reached for comments on the incidents. Away from security to health matters now, resident doctors in Taraba State have embarked on an indefinite strike to press home their demand for better working conditions. The president of the state chapter, Ahmed Gabriel, told journalists in Jalingo, the state capital, that the inability of the state government to honor its part of an agreement on remuneration and a better working environment led to the action. According to him, the doctors are continually exposed to COVID-19, but no adequate plans in place to protect and take care of the doctors in the front line.
We had to recommend the strike action because the agreement that was signed was not honored or has not been honored. Most of the items on it has not actually been honored by the state government. We're talking about the government to provide adequate, appropriate personal protective equipment for all healthcare workers in the health facilities in the state, immediate implementation of the revised hazard allowance and payment of COVID-19 inducement allowance that was agreed upon, and an MOU that was signed by the government and healthcare workers, and with further attestation and agreements by the Nigerian Governors Forum.
Meanwhile, the president has condoled with the Nigerian Medical Association over the death of 20 doctors killed by the COVID-19 pandemic. In a statement, President Muhammadu Buhari describes the death of the nation's frontline medical workers in the battle against COVID-19 pandemic as particularly sad because these professionals risk their lives in order to save others. The statement reads in part, "Our health workers are making maximum sacrifices for the country in line with their humanitarian calling, and this administration will leave no stone unturned in order to ensure their needs are met." According to the president, health workers are operating under severe limitations but are undeterred in discharging their duties and saving lives, adding that his administration will give their welfare the priority it deserves. And staying with health-related matters now, the outbreak of COVID-19 has, in the last 1 year, put many medical professionals across the globe to task, with the majority of countries, including Nigeria, and their health workers directing their energy towards preventing the spread of the virus. Here in Nigeria, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has, in the last 9 months, coordinated a national response for the virus. issuing guidelines and ensuring supplies of relevant materials for treatment and prevention. This next report takes a look at how this national response to the pandemic has impacted on other killer diseases in Nigeria.
The COVID-19 outbreak has no doubt stretched the healthcare system of many countries, including Nigeria. After the index case of COVID-19 in Nigeria was announced on February the 27th, the federal government set up a presidential task force to coordinate a national response to the virus with the goal of stopping its spread. To a large extent, this response has helped to slow down the spread of the virus. Over 60 laboratories for COVID-19 tests have been built during this period, besides the numerous isolation and treatment centers. The number of infections and fatalities have also been kept relatively low. While these gains are made in the national response to COVID-19, response to some other killer diseases appear to be suffering some neglect, even when the fatality rates from these diseases are on the rise.
Nigeria's response in the fight against TB suffered a decline due to COVID-19, and a new strategy is needed to ramp up performance.
We cannot completely say that we are not paying attention to those other diseases, but to me, it's just that the attention needs to be increased, particularly diseases like Lassa fever, malaria, of course, that has always been with us, and many other vaccine-preventable diseases.
Available data from the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization reveal that diseases such as tuberculosis, Lassa fever, and malaria continue to ravage the country. For example, an estimated 429,000 cases of tuberculosis are reported annually in Nigeria, resulting in about 157,000 deaths. Lassa fever, which is also reported to have killed at least 227 people as of October this year, is said to have a higher case fatality ratio of 20.7%, which is very high compared to that of COVID-19, which stood at 1.8% in November. Malaria also kills an estimated 300,000 people every year, as it contributes to about 11% of maternal mortality in the country. The burden of these killer diseases is so heavy that response to them cannot be ignored, even in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic.
COVID seemed to obviously affects the Western world more than us here in Africa. And look at the effort they put in within 1 year. Is it a conspiracy? No. It is a matter of interest. The Western world is interested. COVID is killing her people. They have to discover the vaccine. Lassa, Ebola, malaria, HIV is killing our people. We should also focus on the discovery of our own vaccines. This is the time for Nigeria to wake up, and I think we have the capacity to lead Africa. This is a time for us to rise again as Africans, to discover these vaccines that will help bring an end to all these diseases killing Nigerians and Africans on a daily basis.
The ravages of COVID-19 are obviously being felt around the world, and the Nigerian government cannot afford to relax in its response to this deadly virus. However, this has to be done side by side with the responses to other diseases that are also killing citizens across the country.
Joining me now to discuss the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on other killer diseases in Nigeria is the chairman of the Medical Guild, Dr. Olujimi Shodipo, who's right here with us in the studio. Good evening, Doctor. Thank you for coming on the program, and compliments of the season to you.
Same to you. Nice to be here, as always.
All right. Now, just like you saw in that report, a lot of attention has shifted to the treatment of the COVID-19 pandemic, and this has led to a neglect of other major killer diseases. Now, with the second wave of the virus here, upon us in the country, what can be done actually to ensure that more attention is given to other critical ailments?
Well, thank you. Well, I think the first thing is we need to look at the lessons learned from the first wave. When we're looking at the ailments that have been affected by COVID, we have to, it's a broad spectrum. The report just focused a lot on some of the infectious diseases, malaria, tuberculosis, HIV, Lassa. I mean, those four have been, major diseases have been affected. But we also need to look at the impact on non-communicable diseases, diabetes, hypertension, cancers, you know. There was a time the system wasn't working very well because of all the pressure from COVID, and people couldn't even get a diagnosis. And, you know, sometimes that could even make a difference between, are you dealing with potential cure, or are you dealing with, you know, a situation where it's palliative because it has spread. So I think some of the lessons we need to learn are, one, we can't shut down the system because of COVID. We need to make sure that the system keeps functioning. Two, we're seeing an increased number of cases. Where are the sources? You know, anytime we look at the reports, we see reports saying there are 300, 400, 900 cases coming in. We need to look at the data a little bit better. We need to look at, are these people, are the cases coming in from abroad? Because that is what has happened all over the world. They've seen that, for example, you have the new variants coming in from the United Kingdom. So if that is the case, how do we now stop at that point so that we don't affect the whole country, especially in a situation where you have, you know, very limited resources? I'll just use the example of India. They also have a very, you know, high migrant population that works abroad and come back during the holidays like Nigeria. So what they've done is they've tried to see where they can strengthen their quarantine services, isolation, and then ensure that people test by 5 days so that people don't get to spread, you know, the virus. I know we've started that in Nigeria, but probably not being enforced. But the most important thing is we can't lose focus of the fact that beyond COVID, there are other causes of mortality. And even with COVID, what they've seen is people that have other disease conditions, once they're not properly managed, they are the ones likely to die compared to other people that, you know, may have no other ailment. So we need to strengthen all that. And some of the services that were affected, for example, and it cuts across all age groups. We could start with children. You know, initially when COVID started, because a lot of the hospitals were not fully functioning, a lot of children could not get vaccinated, and they missed their immunization shots. And it's been difficult trying to get people to get to the level that they should be. For example, you have maybe a 10-week-old child that should have gotten a vaccine, didn't get the vaccine. Parents now finding it difficult to get that. So that is one angle. And then for other disease conditions too, we need to look at, one of the points that was mentioned was even funding. If you look at some of our programs like HIV, they are both donor-driven and also the government contributes something. A lot of the donors, because of the pressure back home of, you know, healthcare and things like that, they're finding it difficult to be able to sustain it. So we need to look at it holistically and not make the same mistakes we made in the first wave, ensuring provide care during the second wave.
All right. Now, one other issue is the fact that many people are actually staying away from the hospitals because of the fear of contracting the virus from the hospitals. So how do health practitioners actually ensure people that there's really nothing to worry about?
Well, we've tried to look at it. I think the best way to look at it is in two ways. Number one is, first, we've tried to reassure people that, the hospitals are safe. A lot of people come into the hospitals. We're taking, you just heard, what happened today in Lagos when in the parks, people celebrating. I guess it's going to be more dangerous being in that park than coming to the hospital, because the hospital is still one place where everybody has to abide by a certain level of precaution, use of personal protective equipment, hand washing and things like that. So that's one angle. Of course, the second angle we've tried to do is looking at vulnerable populations and seeing that does everybody actually need to come. So for example, this has been an opportunity for us to test some of our e-medicine options. Things as simple as telephone consultations, ensuring that the hospitals are properly staggered to ensure that people come for their appointments just when it's necessary and not allow people to gather. But again, I think the first thing is to reassure everybody that the hospitals are safe. We have all the data coming out, and no data has really shown us that because somebody came to the hospital, the person was negative and then subsequently became positive and had a problem. No, most of the time, we've seen that anybody that's actually come in has gotten the virus from the community. And I think the hospital is the best place to actually be because they could access care. So I think this is just a clarion call. I still got that message. Right. When we're in the clinic, people complaining that I think this is COVID, and I said, well, we're all safe, and I think the hospital is still the safest place. All right, we need to wrap up this conversation in just a bit. But before we do that, let me ask now, how do we attract more players into the health sector, owing to the fact that many health workers have also lost their lives to the pandemic? Yeah, it's been quite sad, especially with the second wave. We've seen a high number of, especially medical doctors, some of our senior colleagues have lost their lives, and it just tells us that all of us need to be, we need to apply those precautions. We can't let our guards down. The second issue is, somebody mentioned the fact that how do we now key in as professionals and to ensure that we have a robust response. So I think we need all players to come in, pharmaceutical industry, I mean, your report talked about the vaccines for other illnesses. They are driven by big pharma. So we need, local solutions. As has been mentioned, if a problem is not a problem of the United States, they're not going to invest money there. So we need government to invest in research and development. And I think this is another opportunity for us to look at the budget. For example, when we're talking about the 2021 budget, they're looking at about 7% of the budget as for healthcare. And that is just what is budgeted, not what is actually released. And we know that the African Union has advised that the minimum we should go is about 15%. So this is an opportunity for the stakeholders, policymakers to look at health as what is going to drive the economy. Because once you have a problem with health, you're going to have a problem with the economy.
Which is what many don't want. So I would like to thank you, Chairman of the Medical Guild, Dr. Olujimi Shodipo. Thank you for coming on the news.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
All right, now away from health issues. Now, not many Nigerians are familiar with the technology known as blockchain, but virtually everyone is affected in one way or another by its development. The massive blockchain potential can only be attained if the adoption of the emerging technology gets to farmers, traders, and other categories of the populace. Experts believe that Nigeria's gross domestic product will be significantly boosted if this is achieved. Our technology correspondent, Victor Matthias, reports.
The 2020 Global Crypto Adoption Index, compiled by blockchain data analytics firm Chainalysis, ranks Nigeria 8th in highest crypto adoption in the world. This is as low-end traders are yet to fully embrace blockchain technology, which powers crypto trade.
What the blockchain has come to achieve is it has come to decentralize data. It has come to decentralize ownership. Instead of something staying in one location or one place, it can now be hosted in different channels or different locations.
So on the distributors side,
experts, however, say farmers and petty traders are not left out of the benefits from this emerging technology, especially in a time where financial inclusion is a burning issue.
With blockchain, what we're able to do is reduce the complexity to the level of the user, to the average user. So if you talk of a trader, on a street trader trying to use the technology, we could think of a card, like a PVC card, which would have a QR code encoded or secured with their PIN. So this would be a very easy way for them to have a blockchain wallet, whether it's for cryptocurrency or stable coins.
Anyone who can use a WhatsApp to send messages on the internet can use a simple mobile Bitcoin wallet. It has happened. You can go on Google and search for Bitcoin in Argentina, where farmers were receiving money with Bitcoin. Okay, they were receiving for their proceeds. They receive money, they receive Bitcoin, and they send out the same vegetables and those edibles to the city. The village don't even have a single bank.
The concept, however, seems complex to some, but fears that accompany this worry will soon be a thing of the past.
The opportunity lies there for them too, because it really depends on the supply chain, equipping the right actors within the supply chain. For instance, the retailers, the merchants, suppliers, distributors. If they're on board, then it's easier to make the users, the traders, the everyday people to use the technology if they know it's been accepted. Just as we have used USSD to make payments, and of course, even cards, Visa, MasterCard, to make payments. Eventually, people caught on to it.
PricewaterhouseCoopers predicts that blockchain will contribute $1.76 trillion to the global GDP. For Nigeria to have a big bite of the cherry, it must shift focus from the most popular use case, cryptocurrencies, encourage trade, and prepare a clear-cut policy on the adoption of blockchain technology. Victor Matthias, Channels Television News.
And time now for some business news with Daniola Shubowali.
Thanks a lot, Bissy. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's crude oil exports to the United States fell by 820,000 barrels, or 11.83%, to 6.11 million barrels in the third quarter of 2020. According to latest data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the North American country imported a total of 6.93 million barrels of Nigerian crude in the second quarter of 2020, which is higher in contrast to 5.53 million barrels recorded in the first quarter. In 2010, the U.S. crude imports from Nigeria were as much as 358.92 million barrels, but lowered to 280.08 million barrels in 2011. The U.S. has significantly reduced imports of Nigerian crude oil in the past few years due to increase in its shale production, which is similar to the local light sweet crude grade. Financial markets across the country were closed on Friday for the Christmas break, but let's take a look at their activities within the week. Trading at the Treasury Bills secondary markets was mixed, but with a bearish tilt at the same time, as average yield across all instruments expanded by 3 basis points to 0.5%. However, traders expect activities in the T-bills secondary market to be quiet next week as investors wrap up their books for year-end. Meanwhile, the central bank is expected to roll over 74.84 billion naira worth of maturities at its last primary market auction for 2020 on Wednesday next week. Meanwhile, activities at the bond market remain bearish following profit taken across the benchmark curve for year-end activities. As a result, the average yield expanded by 56 basis points to 5.9%, while average yield expanded across the short, medium and long segments due to sell-offs of the March 2025, February 2028 and March 2050 papers. Traders expect bearish sentiments to continue at the bond market next week as investors continue to book profits which have accumulated within the outgoing year. Well, with Yuletide festivities still in the air, some Nigerians are not too enthusiastic about the celebrations this year. Well, this is because the impact of the coronavirus pandemic has plunged the country's economy into a second recession and left devastating effects on the purchasing power as well as standard of living of the people. A visit to major markets in Lagos highlights the experiences of buyers and sellers alike resulting from the pandemic.
It's the holiday season, and as expected, major markets are buzzing with commercial activities. Last-minute shoppers make up the number. However, the look and feel of the holidays this year is different owing to the global coronavirus pandemic. The compliance level to the COVID-19 protocol doesn't seem to weigh heavily in the minds of the people here. The pandemic also took its toll on the people, impacting their personal finances in more ways than one.
So I thank God for the little I purchased, but it's not enough. So I bought some, but there's no money to purchase the little that remains.
The ripple effect ricochets beyond the buyers.
Last year we sell, by this time for that sell my market. By this time I've lost the market already. But this time around people are just complaining. No money. I don't know what is happening now.
COVID-19 have affected our business too. Completely. What we've been expected as a marketers, we need a lot of people to come out and buy from us like we've been expecting during the Salah time. But we can see that the Christmas is very below expectation in terms of marketing.
Shoppers, traders and families all seem to be on the same page. There appears to be a silver lining from the chairman of the Mile 12 International Market.
Now I think the festive period come with a very good incentive in the sense that things we are selling at the rate of 90,000 naira, 100,000 naira last 3 weeks. I'm talking about onions. Today it's about 30,000, 25,000 naira. So it means the festive is going to go good. People will have a lot of food in the house and we have it abundantly in the market as you can see. The same thing goes with tomato that we are selling at the rate of 9,000-10,000. Today in the market it's about 8,000-7,000, even some 6,000. It depends on the category you want to purchase in the market. The same items, every item we have in the market is very cheap now.
Notwithstanding the impediments, the reason for the season doesn't appear lost on the people. Salvation may just be the much-needed light at the end of the tunnel.
And that's business news tonight. I'm Teniola Shubowale. It's back to BC for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Tenny. And Coyote Alayonde is waiting to give us the latest coming from the sporting world.
Thank you very kindly, Bissy. Welcome to Sports News. FIFA has appointed a normalization committee for the Ivorian Football Association, FIF. This followed the failure of the Ivorian Football Association to carry out an electoral process for a new executive committee in accordance with the statutory and regulatory requirements applicable to all FIFA member associations. The Normalization Committee is mandated to run the daily affairs of the Football Association and review the statutes and electoral code to ensure their compliance with the FIFA statutes and requirements. The World Football Governing Body says the mandate of the Normalization Committee ends on December the 31st, 2021. And in the English Premier League, Jamie Vardy scored a late equaliser as Leicester City and Manchester United cancelled each other out in an entertaining 2-2 draw at the King Power Stadium. Elsewhere, Aston Villa eased past Crystal Palace 3-0 at Villa Park despite being reduced to 10 men with a sending off of England defender Tyrone Mings. In other matches, Fulham played a goalless draw with Southampton at Craven College. Arsenal produced a near-flawless display in the North London derby against Chelsea at the Emirates Stadium, beating Frank Lampard's team 3-1, courtesy of goals from Alexander Lacazette, Granit Xhaka and Bukayo Saka. Well, that will be all on Sports News tonight. Back to BC Adebayo.
Thank you, Coyote. And now for some stories from the international scene. 3 UN peacekeepers from Burundi have been killed in the Central African Republic as tensions flare between government and rebel forces. The UN says unidentified combatants carried out 2 attacks, leaving 2 other peacekeepers injured. The group was stationed in the CAR to quell violence ahead of the presidential and parliamentary elections on Sunday. President Faustin Touadéra has accused his predecessor, Francois Bozize, of fomenting a coup with rebel groups. Mr. Bozize, who is barred from running in the election and is under UN sanctions, has denied the allegation. Cases of the more contagious variant of COVID-19 identified in the UK have been confirmed in several other European countries. Experts say the new variant is considerably more transmissible than previous strains, but not necessarily any more dangerous for those infected. Here is more of this and other developments on our COVID-19 Global Update.
Spain, Sweden, Switzerland and France are the latest European countries to confirm cases of the new coronavirus variant identified in the United Kingdom. The new infections have been linked to people who had recently been to the UK. Several countries imposed travel restrictions earlier this month on passengers from and to Britain amid concerns over the variant, which is thought to be more transmissible than others currently circulating. Meanwhile, thousands of trucks are still parked up on a motorway leading to the English port of Dover, waiting to cross into France after the country closed its borders earlier in the week. More than 4,500 lorries, some of which had been stranded for days, did manage to cross the channel on Friday, but a huge backlog remains. In other developments, millions of people in the UK woke up a day after Christmas to tougher coronavirus restrictions. Around 6 million people in East and South East England are now in Tier 4, England's highest COVID-19 level, which includes a stay-at-home order. In some positive news, Hungary has become the first in the EU to vaccinate people against the coronavirus, a day ahead of rollouts in several other countries as the pandemic surges across the continent. The first shipment of the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine arrived in nations across the European Union on Saturday as authorities prepare to administer the first shots to the most vulnerable people in a coordinated effort on Sunday. A fire has killed at least 7 people and injured several others at a private hospital that was treating coronavirus patients on the outskirts of the Egyptian capital, Cairo. According to initial investigations, the fire was caused by an electrical fault.
And the main news again. For enforcement of COVID-19 restrictions in Lagos, some residents throw caution to the wind as they gather at farm spots on Boxing Day. Also today, troops fighting insurgency in the northeast got assurances of increased support and adequate equipment as the chiefs of army staff and air staff visited the front line in Borno and Yobe states. And several European countries confirmed cases of the more contagious COVID-19 variant identified in the UK. And that's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I am Bisi Adebayo.